SH Figuarts' Son Goku, the kind-hearted Saiyan, is the latest and greatest base form Goku from Bandai Tamashii Nations in their Dragon Ball Z SH Figuarts line. This will just be a quick video since this is essentially just a new head on the updated 4.0 Goku body, first introduced with the Super Saiyan Goku Games Begin, with some slight changes to the color of his gi. So for details on the sculpt and articulation on this body, I'll refer you back to my review for Games Begin Goku, as I covered it in depth over there. In this video, we'll focus on what's new and different with the kind-hearted Saiyan, and discuss a few updates that have come out about the Dragon Ball SH Figuarts line, which have given me a lot more confidence in the line's direction going forward, especially since my Dangerous Pride Vegeta review. Essentially, since April of this year, Tamashii has a new lead designer in charge of the Dragon Ball line, who's already making some pretty promising changes, one of which is having more of an ear to the ground and apparently less of a middle finger to the ground as the previous designer. And so, question for the comments, if you could say one thing, ask the new designer to prioritize one thing in particular, what would it be? It could be articulation, character selection, accessories, making a specific figure. For me, it's gotta be character selection. I think the 5+ years of 75% Namek figures has gotten really old and left a ton of huge gaps. I would just really like to see more of a variety, not let's move on to the Android saga and only do Android saga for the next 5 years. Variety, meaning let's build out the character graph across the series and not just tunnel vision on one particular part of it. But let me know what your priorities would be, or if you could say one thing to the new lead designer, what would you say? Because yeah, apparently they're a little more willing to listen to what fans want than the previous lead. Kind-hearted Saiyan comes in a standard Dragon Ball SHF box, standard size, same as Games Begin Goku. Same layout, different accent color this time around with the orange. Quick rundown of all the logos on the front. This is intended for ages 15 and up. Warning, choking hazard, small parts not for children under 3 years. There are 2 holographic stickers indicating authenticity. There's the Tamashii Nations quality sticker and a gold-tinted Toei animation sticker. I'm always learning new things about the Bandai figures, and this gold-tinted Toei sticker apparently indicates this is the Japanese market release. They have different ones for like China, the US, and maybe some other countries. But otherwise along the bottom we have Bandai Tamashii Nations Dragon Ball Z, designed by Tamashii Nations in Japan, Bandai Spirits, made in Vietnam, and of course he still has the dynamic movable shoulders printed on the box. I wonder how long they are going to keep that up. I think it's a little tacky, like, you know when you buy a book that's being adapted into a movie and it has like a big sticker on the front that's like, now being made into a movie by such and such. That's this. Let's not do this. Speaking of books, quick glance at the spine and the bottom and the top and finally around the back. Let's crack him open. Sharp object, use an adult or an adult brain if you have one. And we're back to uncolored cardboard on the inside of the box. This is probably some kind of batch number. We have an orange color panel insert. Quick peek at the instructions, which simply point out the interchangeable hands, the soft parts of his gi, interchangeable faces, and interchangeable windswept hair, which unfortunately still uses the same awful neck design. This is one of Tamashii's lowest price figures at $38 US, up from $35 a year or two ago. But still, for that price, this is a really good set of accessories. We have 4 interchangeable faces, including a neutral, serious face, a smirking face, a gritting teeth face, and a shouting face. We have 2 alternate hair sculpts. Each is compatible with all of the faces. A neutral, relaxed, standard Goku hair sculpt, and a windswept, blowing to his left hair sculpt. He has 6 pairs of hands this time compared to 5 that came with the Games Begin Goku, a pair of fists, a pair of spread finger open palm hands, a pair of 2 pointing finger instant transmission hands, a pair of martial arts stance posing hands. The new sculpt for this set, a pair of clenched finger open palm hands with the last 2 fingers slightly more clenched, and then the same pair of clenched finger open palm hands as the Games Begin Goku. So while there is one new pair of hands, it's a little strange that it's basically an in-between the martial arts hands and the sort of standard Kamehameha hand. Maybe there's a specific use for this hand, but I'm not sure it adds a ton of value for me. I would like to see the flat karate chop hand, personally. But again, for under $40, this is a great value. Probably a loss leader for Tamashii, which means they might be losing money or making a very small profit on these Goku figures because they are entry points into collecting all the other figures in the line, which not a bad idea, and it opens the collecting doors to people who maybe just don't want to spend more than $40 on figures. So I think that's cool. And here we have Kind-Hearted Saiyan next to the Games Begin Super Saiyan Goku. And apart from the head sculpts, obviously, the main visual difference is the color palette, which was lightened up for the Games Begin Super Saiyan Goku because he's got that aura. And I really like that approach. I think that works really well. I think these two look super good side by side. And because they're the same body, the heads are directly compatible. And here's a quick look at what the head swap looks like. More of a relaxed Super Saiyan look and more of a manga color palette base form Goku. And I think this looks pretty good too. I love this direction of like the lightning colors through the Super Saiyan forms. And I really hope if they do a Super Saiyan 3 update, they go with that really nice like yellow ochre color for the gi. I think that would be cool. Maybe a little divisive. Maybe that's an event exclusive idea. I think that's what they were going for with the 1.0 Super Saiyan 3. I think they can get a lot closer to the mark now. And here we have Bandai Through the Years, the good old Super Battle Collection Volume 1, the SHF 1.0 base form Goku, which has earned a certain vintage charm at this point, I think. And not quite there yet for me, the 2.0 Saiyan Raised on Earth Goku. And as I mentioned, go check out my Games Begin video if you want to see how the sculpting and engineering approach has changed between these 3 Goku generations. One thing you could say about Kind-Hearted Saiyan Goku compared to base form Gokus of the past is the facial expressions are more subdued. We of course have the default expression for Saiyan Raised on Earth, which is this big smiley happy face, and the 1.0 is just a treasure trove of great comedic Goku faces. But you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong. I think this is the first time we've gotten a like semi-serious smirking Goku face, from Tamashii at least. And so I actually really appreciate that because at this point in Goku's life, he's like loving fighting anybody he gets the chance to, no longer taking the fights so seriously, and this face is just perfect for happy Goku confidently walks into battle, which is something we haven't really been able to do before, and can be pulled off wonderfully given how expressive the articulation is on the new body. And if you like happier, lighter, comedic, or just more range of facial expressions for Dragon Ball characters, then I have good news. This is something the new lead designer on Dragon Ball is confirmed to also prioritize and has already started to influence on 2 of the most recently announced figures, adding that big old happy face for Z Fighter Gohan, which is like the best thing about it, and also ensuring that the battle-damaged Recoome, which we'll get to in a moment, who likely started that project, ensuring that he also has like a bunch of comedic, bloodied battle expressions. So that's awesome, and I'm super, super glad to hear that. I've been, for years, saying Tamashii needs more range of expression for the Dragon Ball figures, and so I'd love to hear that that's finally happening with the new designer. And to give you an idea of some of their previous work, they designed the Hell's Paradise figures, which, like the series, are super good and super underrated, which also means they were the lead designer on the rebooted Naruto line, which, along with My Hero Academia, is like the gold standard of SH Figuarts. Naruto has slowed down a little bit in recent years, but that's because the design lead on that line has changed twice in the last 2 years. The rebooted Naruto Shippuden figures all came with tons of expressions, great articulation, guys put out. So I'm really looking forward to what they bring to Dragon Ball going forward. We won't start to see full figures designed by them probably until like early 2027. The way things work, figures take about a year to develop, so everything we're seeing now has been in development, and that includes the Z Fighter Gohan, which we saw last November, and the battle-damaged Recoome, which brings me to the outgoing lead designer on Dragon Ball. For years, people have been acting like, oh, Tamashii has this grand plan, they're going to go saga by saga through all of Dragon Ball Z and make absolutely everyone, and they're just focusing on Namek right now, but just you wait, the Android saga is next. Nope. Turns out, Tamashii has an employee rotation program, and the person who was put in charge of the Dragon Ball line 4 years ago decided to use it as a vehicle to express their enormous love for the Frieza saga by making every figure they possibly could from that saga. Now, I don't want to dog on this person, and don't get me wrong, they have made some excellent figures, both leads and deep cuts into the Namek saga, and for the most part, they're all figures that I would want to own anyways, just maybe not the highest on my priority list, and not at the expense of the rest of Dragon Ball being relegated to like 20% or less of the line. And as good as it looks, even I have to draw the line at a second version of Recoome, Zarbon, and Dodoria for that matter, and a $400 talking statue of Guru. And we don't have half the forms of the main series villains. Something's been out of whack for a long time, and it's good to finally have an explanation. It's not some master plan that they're sticking to no matter what. It's just some guy that wanted to do this thing and didn't listen to anybody else. For the new person in charge, I would like to request more of a variety across the series. What I really don't want is nothing but Android Saga for 5 years, because that's how we end up with cowboy hat clothing store clerk before Kid Buu, and I don't think anybody wants that. So, like I said, build out the character graph. Think of it as little pockets of collections around the series. You can start a new pocket with a nice anchor figure, and bam, suddenly one figure opens up all these networked connection possibilities. And apparently, like I said at the start, they have more of an ear to the ground, listening to what fans are asking for. And yeah, you can start by putting a comment down below this video. I don't know if anybody at Bandai or Tamashii will see it, but other people in the collecting community will. And that alone helps grow word of mouth across the community. As I mentioned, different colors, but same exact body as the Games Begin Goku, with all of its good points and its quirks and drawbacks. Same exact floaty midsection, pain in the neck joint, shoulder sleeves that like to retreat into the torso unless you fiddle with them, and the strange boot joint that only goes forward. However, there's one more major difference, and I'm really happy to say this figure feels a lot sturdier in hand. It feels like they really dialed in the mold. No more wobbly, loose bicep. Every joint feels pretty darn close to perfect. Nothing too loose, nothing too tight, nothing squeaky. And so far, the leg doesn't pop off. Nothing really popping off where it's not supposed to. The faces stay attached much better. They still tend to kind of wiggle off a little bit if you push the neck articulation down, but nowhere near as bad as this guy and that situation. The neck joint is still a pain. You still have to deal with this very silly neck joint, which pretty much requires you to disassemble the head to connect it. I've seen people have some luck holding the front of the joint and pushing it this way. I don't know if my fingers are too big to do that. Ouch. Is it on? Okay, I think it's on. Put the face back on. Apart from just more solid, sturdy joints, there's one other mechanical difference to emphasize between Games Begin and Kind-Hearted Saiyan. If you look at the gap at the back of the neck when they're looking all the way down, you can see there's a lot more cut out of the Super Saiyan head. That gap is helpful. You don't see it most of the time, but it does help Games Begin Goku to look up more than most Dragon Ball figures that I have. Good 45 degrees. Unfortunately, the Kind-Hearted Saiyan with less of a cutout is a little more limited in that respect. Looking up only about 30 degrees, which is definitely not enough. I would like 90 degrees, definitely no less than 45. And before you say, that's impossible, you're never going to get 90 degrees of neck range, first of all, go look at every Mafex and Revoltech figure. And second of all, this is the Superhero Ultimate Gohan, which has a normal vertical socket in the head, and just so happens to fit the ball joint exactly. Now, before you say, oh my god, his neck is so long, no. This was not designed to go on this body, so it definitely needs some adjusting. You can mess with the hinge a little bit if you kind of angle it so it's doing something more like this. You can bring the height down a little bit and get it to look good from a specific angle, but obviously if you kind of turn them around, it looks a little weird. But the cool thing about this is the hinge actually does what it's, in my opinion, supposed to do, which is, you know how Mafex has that like kinked dumbbell joint? Well, the hinge here just like gives you the kink. If this was adjusted a little bit, there's mechanically how I think this neck joint should work. And the reason you want it to work like that is now your martial artists can do cool stuff like this, which, yes, looks ridiculous from this direction, needs adjusting, but the idea is he is crouching low while still looking forward. And that is so important for fighting characters. It just unlocks like a whole new set of posing options that simply aren't available if that's the most that your character can look up. Suddenly they're staring awkwardly at the floor. And I mean, as far as the like raising and lowering his neck gimmick, it really doesn't do a whole lot for me because the maximum height is pretty much where I think his neck ought to be. And if you lower it, it's like, okay, well now it's way too short. So you can have the neck be way too short or the correct height. And that's pretty goofy. I think maybe having a little bit more vertical clearance, maybe even carving more out of the back of the neck or making room in the back of the torso for the neck to tilt back more. A combination of those things can help squeeze out at least another 30 degrees looking up, because this just isn't enough. That's not even close to enough. Here's some instant transmission action. Neutral face, instant transmission hand, tilting his neck forward a little bit. I seem to remember Goku doing that when he's doing the instant transmission, like he's concentrating on finding that key signature he's looking for. No problem reaching toward his own forehead. Believe it or not, I've had figures that need to touch their forehead and cannot. And just like Games Begin, the like body language, nuanced posing is so good with this figure. Thanks to all of the great engineering in the shoulders, the hips. So you can do a fairly subtle pose like this and still have it look really nice. Quick close-up on the neutral face and neutral hair. The face is straightforward, but looks really good. He has that like sharper jawline that Cell Saga and Buu Saga Goku started to have. The hair sculpt is really good. The finish is a little bit strange. I don't know what it is, but there's some like surface roughness Like you can see there's like a little like splotchiness here. There's a little bit on his bangs. It detracts a little bit, but thankfully it's dark hair, so it doesn't show up quite as much as it would with lighter hair, but it could definitely be a little better. The face has a nice matte finish, but I'm noticing there is a little bit of gloss on his neck there. You can still see as I turn him around. Let's try some more part swaps. Here's a nice low crouching fighting stance, and you can see some gaps from some angles, but I do not mind whatsoever. I think this range of motion is really good. That doesn't bother me. I want it to look like this. A lot of people are asking, like, what's the point of that boot joint that only goes forward? And here you can see I've used it to basically tilt his body forward a little bit more in this deep crouching pose. That's the thing I find it most useful for. It just like puts a little bit more flex in the lower leg. It conveys that he has weight on that part of his body, makes it a little easier to ground the figure. If it could go back as well as forward, I'd be a lot happier with it, but honestly, I think they would really need to just make it a ball joint. I think that's the right way to do it. Also a good opportunity to look at some of the fine details on this figure. There's not a ton of paint. One exception is the skin tone over blue for his chest and collar area, which matches pretty well, but definitely bleeds over the line a little bit. It's not terrible, though. And I think the coverage is better than Games Begin Goku, where you can see some blue poking through the boots. The colors have changed a little bit on the boots as well. A little bit more green in the blue for Games Begin. A little bit more yellow in the cords. I think the red might be the same, though. And line work is good across both. The last place, there's some airbrush style shading on just the front of the pants again. Not sure why only the front of the pants get it, but similar to Games Begin, the kind-hearted Saiyan has the same darker orange shading underspray on the pants. One detail you can see while his leg is bent, there's a pretty prominent seam line right on his right knee. Let's see if the Games Begin has the same. There is a slight line there now that I look at Games Begin, but it's much more prominent on the kind-hearted Saiyan. Is it on his other leg? Let's find out. Okay, yeah, it is on both knees. Maybe it's on... Oh, yeah, there it is. Okay, it's on both sides. When the knee is all the way bent, you can see it, and it's not the worst placement in the world. That is just a consequence of making this, like, fully formed volume for his leg. There has to be a seam line through it somewhere to mold the geometry. If you're gonna have one, that's a good place to put it, like way in the bottom, hidden as well as it can be. The only other like molding artifacts that I have are on some of the soft parts, like the top of his waist below the belt there is a little like chewed up looking, and then the bottom of his shirt. This feels much more like a good quality collectible figure than both the Games Begin and the Dangerous Pride Vegeta. Let's get a good look at this hair sculpt and the gritting teeth face. It's not often we get a looking forward gritting teeth. They like to give him side eyes on this one. Squarish mouth, line through the middle, white paint for the teeth, standard eye deco. But it's a good sculpt. There were some wild looking photos of this figure when it first released, showing like weird chubby cheeks. I mean, his cheeks are a little bit pronounced, but I wouldn't say they're chubby. I don't know what it was about those photos, just the way they were lit, I think. And yeah, the hair sculpt is great. It reminds me of the Cell Games Gohan. And a signature Goku roundhouse kick. Really trying to push and exaggerate the degree of kicking here. And you can see just how close his torso gets to like the line of his leg. That's really great. And I also really like how much you can lean his neck forward. Like he's really stretching it to look past his shoulder. Don't love how much the shirt rides up and exposes little gaps like this. But you can work with it and eventually find the sweet spot for the pose. This face is the first one that maybe seems a little shiny. Compare that to the gritting teeth one. There's definitely a little shine left on the forehead there. Look at the face sculpt. In the open mouth, you can see the two colors for the tongue and the back of the mouth. And the teeth, of course. Pretty nicely painted. Great expression. Yeah, just a shame the matte spray didn't seem to get all the way on this one. And one thing I notice is if you push the articulation at the waist a lot, like I do, I don't know why, but they've painted some blue shading on his belt, and somehow it ends up like rubbing off on the waist piece. You can see it like right there at that crease. And then there's more at the back. So where's that leave us? Apart from the neck, this is a straight improvement over Games Begin Goku. The faces don't fall off. The figure feels better in hand, smooth, sturdy, nice refinement. Once again, proving that Vietnam manufacturers can produce good figures, and suggesting to me that maybe that's not where the problem is. Maybe there's either a learning curve with new molds, issues that only surface on production runs, too much schedule pressure from Tamashii HQ, maybe all of the above, implying Tamashii needs to be a little bit more patient and verify, like, one more round of production samples before telling them to hit print on all the copies of the figure before they come out with, like, really, really annoying problems like Games Begin did. The new head and faces are excellent, just pure Android Saga goodness. Even though he doesn't have a happy, goofy, smiling face, I really like the smirking face that's included this time. It's definitely my favorite base form Goku head sculpt that Tamashii has done, and I think it beats out any third-party base form head sculpt at that. And since this is his Android and Buu Saga outfit without the symbols and the belt tie, which has become his default appearance across media, including movies and video games, it's simply a really good all-around base form Goku. Generic, but in the best way possible, if that makes sense. I hope you've enjoyed this look at Goku the Kind-Hearted Saiyan. This has been the Art of Action Figures. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.